You talked to me on the phone about the 4 principles.
Oh.
And I wondered if you could repeat those, because I think what I really want to ask is about the 4 principles so that we can learn them and reference them, and then maybe about how we try to apply these in this gathering with greater success or less success. I think the 4 principles were really valuable transmission of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Sure. You said you brought some bananas?
Yes, sir.
I need one.
Get the yellowest one. They were a little green.
Yeah, I have to eat bananas a lot. My legs get cramped up.
Okay, before I start, I want to talk about happiness. I got a little bit emotional yesterday, and that's the story. But I got emotional. Thank you. I got emotional because I was overwhelmed with happiness, and I asked the question today, this morning, I woke up. I asked myself the question: what is happiness? For me, what is happiness? Now, you could close the door because the air conditioning, I think, is on. And there's extra chairs if you wish to have a few extra chairs. I like it. There's was my moment of happiness, and then I thought of who could I share that happiness with, or how can I share a happiness? And the reason I was happy was because 3 years and 11 months ago, I came down with a temperature of 105. It was August 29th, just before Labor Day. And it was still hot, and my temperature was 105, but I didn't know it at the time. We were going to Rapid City, and when we got down the road, they turned the air conditioner on. I couldn't stop shaking. I was so cold. And yet, I was almost hallucinating type of thing. And so, I guess, and at the same time, we had a fire, and it was very dry 3 years ago, extremely dry. None of this was green at the beginning of, now is July, what is today? I don't even know the dates. But, okay, so it was,
yes,
and the ground was all brown. The grass had just came up, and it turned brown. And dry lightning hit over there, 27 miles. Let's see, it'll be 15 and about 30 miles away. There's some hills up there, like what's over here. Lightning struck several places and it started burning. And it was in a terrain that was rough, so they couldn't put it out. And they waited for it to come out of the hills, and when it did, gusts of wind hit, 30, 40 mile an hour gusts. And that thing raced clear past Pine Ridge, up into these hills, killed 30 buffalo in there, burned up. There's a buffalo pond. And it was burning along, it came over the hills there, and it burned up along these hills up here.
Wow.
And it burned back another 15 or 18 miles. It was all on fire. And I was sick, and they said, "We got to get you to the hospital." Okay. And so we went, and we had to stop several times because the fire was threatening, and the smoke was just like this. And it took me about 2 hours to get to the hospital, and normally it takes about half an hour. So I got there, and they took my temperature, 105, and they took some of the other vitals, and they said, you're in a condition, it's called sepsis. and that's a shutting down of the systems. And so we got to get you to specialized care in Rapid City. And so they ordered a plane in. I got on the plane. Ended up in Rapid City half an hour later. They took me in, and I began intensive treatment. I was in hospital 8 days. But I was in hospital 8 days because here on my toe, I had been involved in a Sundance. We had a Sundance over here on the flat. And, you know, I didn't Sundance, but I was preparing things. I was fine. What I did was I developed a wound. And being a diabetic, it did cover the top of it, but it went downward. And it was here about 8 days through the Sundance and preparation for it. So I rested one day and I got in the car and I went to north of Missoula, Ronan, Flathead Reservation, Kootenai Salish, Ventura, or something like that. I went up there for a traditional circle of elders and youth gathering. I was there a week, and I came back, and that's when I got this. So all this time, this thing was working, but when you develop diabetes, you have no, you lose your sense of feeling. And so there I was. I put myself into a really acute care type of, well, time to go to school. But, well, that started a journey that ended yesterday. And that journey was using the medicine that our Creator gave us and using the medicine that Creator gave to Western medicine. And I have 30 years of hospital administration experience, and so I know both, and I respect both. Well, when I came to a point that I was going to get amputated, I was released after 8 days, and I went a year, and during that year I went to, they call it hyperbaric oxygen tube, and knock you up. You're in there, I think 60 minutes, you come out, and you do that every day. I did that every day for 30 days, twice. And then I had one of these tubes that's connected in so that they can attach a tube on there, and I lay down and they pump antibiotics, heavy antibiotics, and that was every day too. So I went through all this, and I went through 3 cars, and the day that it was going to be amputated, he said, "You can't care for this anymore. The way that you treat osteomyelitis is you amputate. You stop the flow because it can enter your body." Well, 2 weeks before that, I turned to my spiritual leader and I said, "I need help. I don't want to be amputated. I got too much spirit." And I came at 10, a woman I plan on going out with them. And so he prepared the medicine and he gave it to me. It's a broth. And it's taken from the root. And I know the medicine because my great-grandmother gave me the name. She was a medicine woman, and she waited till all her children were grown, and she was about 40 years old when she received the calling to be a medicine woman. And in fact, one of her sons was the second Native American to graduate from Princeton. And he left the reservation for 58 years and finally came back. First and last time I saw her. But she was a tremendous woman. And when I was born, 6 weeks after I was born, she came. She lives about 50 miles away. And she took me and told my mother, she said, "I'm giving him his Lakota name, Thunderbird. And he's going to be a leader amongst the people. And he's going to follow this journey, and I will be with him." That's my name. Well, when I was going up for the amputation, I had already taken the medicine And my spiritual leader said, you will walk again. Okay, but you have to have two things with you. One is that when the sun comes up, you offer prayer. When the sun is above, you offer prayer. When the sun is going down, you offer prayer. When you're getting ready for bed, you offer prayer. Thanking God for the strength that God can and will give you. It's a belief. Belief is what is truth. Belief is truth. Spiritual is a little higher sacredness. Sacred belief is the sacred truth. There you are connected in the main purpose of your existence. It's all there with you. You have to do that. Sure, I can do it. And I did. And so I'm going for amputation. And this is where I found a lot of anxiety. What am I going to do? How am I going to get around? I'm going to still garden. I don't care what happens. I'm going to garden. I'm going to still be outside. I love outdoors. I've always been outdoors whenever I get a chance. And I want to see spring. I want to see summer. I want to see fall. I want to see spring again. Those are renewal times. They're times of prayer. I want to do that. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to see the doctor, but opposition of that is your life is going to change. Anxiety, a lot of concern. And you crossed the Cheyenne River and we started up here. Got up on a plateau, and along the road there's two objects that I see. They're objects about this high. They look like posts. And I don't remember any posts being there. I don't know why there's posts there. So we're looking, and this is half a mile away. And then we get a little bit closer, and they're not posts. They're birds. They're eagles. The closer we got, then eagles this tall. Normal eagles are here. This is as high as a post would be. I don't know, over 3 feet. And they're both looking at me like this as we're coming. And as we come by, they're following. And when they're right here, eye to eye, I see their eyes. Just as kind of a all burnish or kind of a burnish red type of real deep, beautiful eyes. And they're looking at me like this. And the moment we went by, all of this anxiety that I had disappeared. You're going to be okay. No need for concern. You're going to be okay. All this anxiety I had, just like that, was gone. And so we get to the hospital, and I'm going to be admitted after I'm checked. And they have a machine that will squirt water, and then it vacuums it out. It cleans the wound. They were doing that, and the nurse said, "Oh my goodness, there's granulation." And what that means is that blood is flowing in there, and that means that there's cell growth. The doctor comes in, and he says, "Well, I'll be damned." Before I left, my spiritual guide said, "Tell me how you feel when you come back. Tell me what the doctor said." I immediately remembered that. Cancel the surgery. So I came back. I told him, I said, and the doctor said, "Well, I'll be damned." So then began a whole different process. And my prayer in the morning, my prayer at midday, my prayer at sunset, my prayer before I go to bed. And in there, I called God grandfather, my grandfather. There's no one around here now that I can call grandfather that's old, but I do have a grandfather. In our language, Tokashila, grandfather, Wakan, Haka, sacred enormity. And I was sharing with Stephen. I said, people and God have made laws, and who's going to be the winner if there's ever to be a contest? Who's going to be the winner? Because man made law. They made a constitution of the United States. They made the regulations for a nation. But before that, who are we? We are people. Where did we come from? We came from creation as God. Creation of God. And I don't know if any of you have a belief that there's no God, and I respect it if you don't, because my background is in science, and a lot of times there's things to believe, not believe. So I have respect. I'm not a judger of people. I can look at every one of you, and if I talk to you for 5 minutes, I know exactly who you are. I know where you come from. I know you if you have anger. I know if you have happiness. I have that gift. So what I had was the law. And I have been confronted many times in my work. And I've had charges put on me. I've had injunctions by the Glalasu Tribal Council, government, court, I mean. And so I always ask them this question. We're talking about law. Okay, here's man's law. Educated men that study and create law make the law. But interesting enough, they make another law to break that law. It's always how man does it. But there's a law that can't be broken. So which law is first? Is it man's law or is it God's law? This is a chief judge, and he laughs. He says, of course, it's God's law. God's law is first. Man's law is second. Good. You know, what is an injunction? You're going to put me in jail? Oh, no. It's just court acting, say, cease and desist. That's all. Thank you. So I violated that law that man made. They put an injunction for me to cease a sacred ceremony. And jealousy came from different factions. And they said, we don't want you to do that. Stop it. We don't want you to put this hair. And it was a hair lock of my great-great-grandfather, Chief Bigfoot. That's who I come from. And this ground that you're on is Chief Bigfoot's son, who survived Wounded Knee and started life all over again. Well, all these things are kind of coming together. And when I began that healing yesterday, 3 years and 11 months, and almost 11 months, 3 years, 10 months, and 2 weeks, and 6 hours that I was diagnosed. And the doctor said yesterday, you're healed. You're healed.
You're free of diabetes.
Oh.
Well, free of the jeopardy of being
Amputated.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I have
The
diabetes.
sepsis.
I still
Free
have
of the
diabetes.
sepsis.
But knowing health, I know very few cases of curing osteomyelitis except by amputation. I'm one of the few. So that's why I asked myself the question, who's happy? And, you know, nobody could care. I mean, each one of us has a threshold of happiness, despair, anger, all of these emotional things. Each one of them has. So if I say this and I declare it, you say, that's great. I mean, you appreciate it. But then you're going to ask yourself that deep question, what is happiness? And I challenge each one of you to do some reflection. What is the happiness that is in your life? I know Stephen. I know him well. And I've only met him twice. But he has a happiness, and he shared his happiness with me. And he worked with me, and I needed to rake this up because this was cut, and there's a lot of grass there. Well, what can it turn into? It can turn into black earth. And I was wishing that. Well, I have some young students that are working with me. I teach them 8 o'clock to noon. And so I was going to have them do that. And Stephen comes to pick me up. I don't have any ride. I have to catch a ride wherever I go. And so I said, if he could come and pick me up. And he says, where's your rake at? So I didn't ask him. I said, it's back there. So rummaging around, he found a rake and he put it in and he came. And I said, I know what you can do. And he said, what? I said, that dead grass needs to be raked up and put into the compost pile. He said, that's what I thought too. It's beautiful when we can have that kind of an interaction amongst us as human beings. We're not perfect. So happiness was a creation of something that came to my mind. And I'm so happy today. You know, I'm here to be outside. And I'm happy for you guys to come because we can share things. Beautiful. It's about the epitome of happiness that one can have, that I have right now. And all good things are happening. Yesterday we had a meeting. We're developing a buffalo herd here. We're bringing back our relatives. We're bringing it back to this land. I'm the sole owner of 2,000 acres here, which might seem like a lot, but when you have buffalo, it's a certain amount. Buffalo. Oh, here's Dominica. Hello.
How are you?
Ashte.
Hi, it's nice to see you again.
Get her a chair if you could.